Hello, boys and girls. Today is Tuesday, April 7th, and it is a beautiful day outside. And we have no e learning today. Woohoo! Not that e learning's bad, but it sure is nice to have a beautiful day and no e learning. But if you didn't finish your e learning for Monday, then I will recommend getting it done before you go outside and play. Make sure, though, that we're keeping our social distancing because we want to make sure everybody stays healthy. All right, it's time for the story. So, let's shake those extra giggles and jiggles out. There they go, bouncing around the room. And let's bring our hands together. And today's jam is going to be one of my favorites. It's just plain old raspberry jam. I love raspberry jam. Raspberry jam and peanut butter. Very, very, very delicious. I know some of you guys can't have peanut butter, so try raspberry jam and soy butter. Delicious. All right, I am at Bailey Elementary today, and I'm in Mrs. Swanson's kindergarten class. And I have a really good book that the request for this came all the way from San Antonio, Texas. So, this request was put in by Channing and Sanibel from San Antonio, Texas. Walter, the Farting Dog. Yes, there's actually a book called Walter, the Farting Dog. So, we'll get started. Betty and Billy brought Walter home from the dog pound. Billy said, "Nobody really wanted him." And Betty said, "But we love him. He's going to be the best dog ever." And Mother said, "Well, he smells awful. I think you guys are going to have to give him a bath." Billy and Betty were just so happy to have a fantastic dog like Walter. He gave the best kisses and had the wettest nose and was a big, chubby dog, so he was excellent at snuggling. When Billy and Betty had Walter in the bath, giving him a good scrub, Mother walked in and says, "He smells awful still." And that's when they got their first clue that Walter was special. And the telltale sign were the bubbles in the water. And they knew that their bathtub wasn't a jacuzzi. It didn't have any bubble makers. It was Walter making bubbles himself. Mother said, "He's probably just a little bit nervous. His stomach may be upset, but woohoo! It sure does smell in here. Crack a window, for heaven's sakes." But Walter's stomach wasn't upset at all. Walter's stomach was actually fine. He felt pretty normal. He just unfortunately farted a lot. And boy, were Billy and Betty in for a surprise once they learned that. Because no matter what Walter was doing, he was always just a little gassy. He farted when he took a bath. He farted when he played with Betty and Billy. He farted when he walked around the house. He farted just standing there. He farted in the dining room, he farted in the kitchen, and he farted outside. He even farted in his sleep. And let me tell you, none of them smelled very good at all. Woo! They were all pretty stinky. Dad came in one night and said, "That dog farts morning, noon, and night." And poor Betty and Billy, they loved Walter. They said, "But he can't help it, Daddy." They didn't mind Walter's farts at all. Sure, they were stinky. Sure, that made their eyes water sometimes because they were so foul. But Walter was such a cuddly, cuddly dog and gave extra good kisses. Billy said, "So what if he farts a lot?" "It's no big deal." And Betty agreed. Walter agreed too. He sat there looking innocently around and, well, you guessed it, farted. Father said, "We're going to have to take him to the vet. He's going to melt the paint off the walls in here. It smells so bad." And Billy and Betty thought, that's a great idea. Maybe the vet can help him. So at the vet, he came into the room and was like, "Oh my goodness, it smells so bad in here." Billy and Betty put their hands in their face, and just when they did that, guess what Walter did? He farted. The vet said, "Farting, a rectal flatulence, eh? As we say in the medical profession. I suggest a diet change." And Walter innocently was smiling and wagging his tail and farted. Billy and Betty were excited, and so was Dad, that maybe there'd be some end to the stinkiness that was coming out of Walter on a daily basis. So, they gave Walter every kind of dog food. And guess what? He farted. They tried him on cat food. They gave him hot dogs and hamburgers and lettuce and tomatoes and sandwiches. They gave him fried chicken. They gave him rabbit food. They made him a vegetarian. And no matter what they gave him, Walter farted. Just some of the stuff actually made him fart even more. No matter what that dog eats, he turns into a fart machine, roared Dad. "I can't take this anymore. I go to work and everybody says that I smell like farts. It's because of the dog. They don't believe me. They think I'm the stinky guy." Poor, poor Walter. And guess what? Poor Walter got blamed for everybody else's farts too. If Uncle Irv let one slip, he just went and stood by Walter and said, "Good gravy, Walter." Then all he had to do was do that. And everyone would look at poor old Walter, and of course Walter would sit there with a big grin, smiling and farting. That's when Dad declared, "He's got to go back to the pound." And poor Betty and Billy begged, "No, please, 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 don't take him away. Walter's our favorite dog. He's our only dog. Sure, he farts a little bit, but come on. Look at him. He's such a cuddly, cuddly dog, and he gives great kisses." It was all over, though. That night, Betty and Billy cried in their beds, and Walter looked at them, well, very unhappy and farting. Betty said, "Oh, Walter, you just have to stop farting because Father's going to send you back to the pound tomorrow." And, well, Walter was now upset. And when Walter got upset, he actually farted more. If that's hard to believe. What were they going to do? So, Walter knew things were pretty serious. He didn't want to ever see the pound again. And he knew if he went, he would never see Billy and Betty again. He resolved to hold in his farts forever. When Billy and Betty fell asleep, he walked down to the kitchen to see if there were anything around to eat. He managed to open up the cupboard door with his nose and found a 25-pound bag of low fart dog biscuits that the vet had prescribed for him, which they actually made him fart even more. Even though he knew they made him fart more, he couldn't resist. He ate the entire bag and thought, those were delicious. Whoa, Walter scared himself with that one. Poor, poor Walter. Poor Walter then went and laid down on the sofa. And guess what? A gigantic gas bubble began to build inside of him. He said to himself, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be trouble." He was afraid of what might happen if he let the fart go. He thought maybe the house would explode, so he kept it in. And that wasn't easy. He was used to farting. In fact, it was pure torture. But he had resolved to never fart again. He wanted to stay with Betty and Billy. His future depended on it, and as he lay there with his tail wrapped tightly between his legs, he heard a noise at the window, and the noise wasn't coming from him. Walter lay there, holding in with all his might. He didn't want to let it go. He watched the window slowly open, and a pair of burglars came through. They dropped silently into the kitchen. One of them said, "Watch out for the dog." The other said, "He's not going to bite us. He's a wimp, I can tell." Walter might have bitten them, except he was so filled with the giant gas bubble that he couldn't move. He knew that if he moved, it would be nothing but the most horrible gas bubble that he's ever had let out. So they tied a rag around his mouth so he couldn't bark. And then the one whispered, "Okay, let's clear this place out now." And they took everything they could to get, or they could get their hands on. Walter wanted to stop him, but he was having unbearable gas pains. Remember, he had that giant gas bubble, and he was doing everything he could to hold it in. He was having a hard time breathing. He was so full of gas. He rolled onto his back and waved his paws in the air. He showed his teeth, but it didn't scare the burglars. They said, "We've got it all. Let's get out of here." And they went running to the window to get out the door, or to get out of the house. And that's when something unthinkable happened. Walter was trying his best. He said he was never going to fart again. But, well, he accidentally sneezed and wasn't able to hold the fart in. It was the worst fart of his entire life. It made a tremendous noise and shot him across the room like a rocket ship. A hideous cloud filled the air. It was Walter's fart. The burglars clutched their throats, unable to breathe. With tears in their eyes, they raced for the window. They tried to grab their bag with all the valuables in it, but their arms were too weak. The gas bubble was taking every ounce of air out of the room. They said, "Let's get out of here. Oh my gosh, it smells so bad." They were doing everything they could to get out of the house. And Walter, letting that gas bubble out, laid there like, "Ah." And then it's like, "Oh no, it's so horrible in here. I'm definitely going to go to the pound tomorrow." He didn't realize that he was stopping the burglars. They jumped out of the window and ran up the block, choking and gasping for air. Still blinded by Walter's farty attack, they stepped into the headlights of an approaching police car. And a policeman said, "Stop, right there, police, don't move." And the burglars were like, "We're stopping, we're stopping, we're stopping." When father and mother came down in the morning, they found an open window. And they saw the dog with their valuables, or they saw the bag with their valuables in it. And Walter was sitting there beside it. He still had the rag tied around his snout. You'd have to say he looked very heroic. Mother cried, "He saved the silverware." And Dad said, "He saved the VCR. Good dog, Walter. You're the best dog ever, even if you do fart a lot." See, luckily, they weren't down there when the giant gas bubble chased those burglars out. Otherwise, it may have ended a little bit different for Walter. And so the family learned to live with Walter, the hero dog. And that's the end of our tale. Well, kind of. because, see, Walter continued to have a little bit of a gas problem. But Mom and Dad and Betty and Billy knew that Walter couldn't help it, and, well, they just tried to make arrangements for it, like letting him out a lot more instead of keeping him inside because, well, those farts stunk. The end. What do you guys think of that one? I thought it was pretty funny too. All right, so today, make sure you get your e-learning done if you didn't do it yesterday. And I will see you guys on Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope that you get to go outside, get a little exercise, because it is a beautiful, beautiful day in the neighborhood. All right. Well, I will see you guys later. Bye.